Hey everyone, this is Andrew from Private Investigator Advice. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really glad you could make it. And this is going to be episode 88. And this comes from an article. This episode comes from an article I wrote a while back. And it was one of my favorite articles to write because it's so... Anybody can use this, whether you're just getting into the industry or maybe you've been in the industry for a while and you're working for different companies. And so the title of this podcast is going to be questions to ask during an interview with an investigation company. So that is going to be the awesome podcast today. Before we get into that, please know that this episode is brought to you by Private Investigator Advice. Private Investigator Advice offers currently 3 templates. We have some more on the way. 3 templates currently. One's a surveillance template. Whether you're just getting into the industry or whether you're just starting your business or whatever the case may be, the other 2 are the kind of common ones. You're going to need a surveillance template if you're doing surveillance. And if you haven't already created one, I've already created one for you, so you don't have to worry about putting that together. And it has all the important areas in the surveillance template that you need. And just to make sure you know what goes in it, I added a example report and a little video walkthrough to help you get through that. The second one I made was a retainer agreement for private investigator businesses. This is going to make sure that everybody in the agreement understands what's happening in regards to how much they're paying, what they're paying for, specific rules that the investigator might have for the client, and of course the client can always add things in there as well. But that's always definitely important for some of your clients with your investigation company. And finally, you need an intake sheet. You need to get the specific information from your client in regards to who they are as well as the assignment itself. So definitely check that out. I'm going to have a link below in the video for the video podcast. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, I will put a link to that in the show notes. And if that doesn't work, you can always go to piadvice.net, and I will always have links to all these templates on the sidebar, or you'll find them somewhere. If you really want them, you can just email me, and I'll show you where to find them. Anyways, okay, guys. So I'm really excited about this podcast. So whenever you are, interviewing for employment with an investigation company, there's always going to be kind of like, well, there should be 2 sides or 2 parts to like the interview. So, of course, they're going to be trying to find out if you're going to be a good fit for them, and so they're going to ask you questions, and then the second part of that is, and of course you're going to answer those to the best of your ability. You want to make a good impression with any potential company that you are interviewing for. But the second part is that, you want to be asking them questions, and you want to find out if they're a good fit for you. One of the things that I've realized being in this industry for as long as I have and working for different companies is that you do not want to be stuck with a company. Maybe you've gone through the interview process and they've hired you on, now you're on board, and then there's all these things that you didn't know were a part of this company. Like maybe I've worked for some companies where I think I'm getting paid a certain thing, but they have all these if, ands, or buts, and if you're doing this and you're working this file, then you're going to get paid this much, and it's different than like you would go work for somebody else. So let's say you go work for a clothing store and they say, okay, Andrew, we're going to pay you, $15 an hour, and it will always be $15 an hour unless you're getting overtime, right? And then you get paid more. But there's some companies that don't do that. They're like, well, we're not going to pay you for this, but we'll pay you for that, and we're going to pay you for this, and then you might get paid less doing this. You don't want to fall into that trap and then be stuck in a situation that you're just miserable in. So that's just one of the reasons why I want you guys to kind of tune into this podcast. And you can always, of course, I'll link to the original article as well. But I just don't want you to be stuck in a situation that you don't, it's not good, right? That's not, maybe it's just not a good company to work for. Maybe they just got a bad, culture about them. So, okay, so without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get into some of these questions, and I really hope they kind of opened your eyes to some of the things you should be thinking about when you're interviewing with these companies. So the first question and I always ask this question. I mean, I've been asking this question for forever. The question is, am I replacing an investigator? And if so, why did the private investigator leave the company? And it kind of seems self-explanatory, but you want to know, and they might not even tell you, but you want to try to find out. You want to know if the previous investigator left on good terms, or whether there was some other reason why the investigator left the company, are they just hiring, because the business is growing and they're doing so well, and they just need to hire more people. Sometimes that is the case. So definitely add one of those questions to your interview process, or when you're asking them questions about them. Now, real quick, and just so you guys know, this actually happened. I wrote about it. I'm gonna have to find the article in regards to kind of the reasons behind this. In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll stop. I'll just get into the questions. I'll talk about the end. So you have to wait for that now. So all right, cliffhanger. So the second question is, what is your investigator turnover rate? How long do investigators stay with the company? That's going to be important for you to know. Let's see here. So, obviously people leave companies for a variety of reasons. And if you find that investigators don't stay with the company for a very long time, it might be a reason behind that. It might be because the managers are bad, or maybe the compensation for the work is unfair. There's a ton of reasons why they might not stay with the company, but you want to try to find that out. You really want to kind of get a feeling for this company before you start working for them. Okay, so the next question is, are there opportunities for advancement? So you want to find out if are you going to come in as an investigator and just always be an investigator? Or, is there room for you to move to like a supervisor position, or maybe a management position? Everybody's different, but, for you might be like, well, where's this going to lead me in 5 years if I decide to stay with this company? Am I always just going to make, just a little bit more than I started with? And is that it for me? So definitely a question to ask if that's an if there's room for growth for you, and not just, being a field investigator, but maybe, something else. The next one I would ask is, what is the management style of the manager? So that you would be reporting to, and you also, not only what his management style is, but has he ever been an investigator? Has he ever been in the field? You will find that a lot of companies have field case managers, the ones that kind of you report to in the office, that don't have any practical experience. They've never done the job, but they're managing people that do the job, and there can be a disconnect there. So that's the reason I would ask for that. And the first part of that question, if you're new to the investigative industry and you have this manager working for, you're working for or working under, you're going to want a manager, especially when you're new to the industry, that kind of helps you and teaches you and kind of guides you. Every company's a little bit different, but you're going to want that kind of nurturing at the beginning of your career to make sure you're doing the right things and know why you're doing the right, doing specific things, and so you can make good decisions while you're out in the field. If you're an investigator that's been in the field for a long time and you really don't need that kind of attention, then you're going to want to make sure that the manager understands that you don't need to be micromanaged. I find that when managers try to, I'm doing subcontract work for people, when they try to micromanage the case that I'm working, it ruins the case because they're not out there. They don't have a feeling for it. And then I start to second guess some of my own decisions, even though my decisions are correct. Or at least in my experience, they're correct. It can kind of muddy the waters on the investigation that you're doing. And so for me, I like to just let me get the, if I'm doing surveillance, let me go get the surveillance video for you, right? Like, let me just do it. Don't make me do something that's going to corrupt this case or the assignment and make mistakes on it where we're going to have to shut it down early or something like that. So that's that. So if your manager doesn't have an experience, you're going to want to know that. Like, you want to know who's managing you, and if you're new, you want to have some kind of be taken care of. And if you're existing and you already know what you're doing, you might want that hands-off manager. Okay, the next question is, can I talk to any private investigators in my area to ask them questions about the company? So, you want to see if there's if I'm to get hired on with a company in Washington and work for them, I would say, hey, can I just talk to some of the people? Because I sometimes you can kind of get the real deal from the investigators that are with the company, not the manager, not HR. You want, just the people that are doing the work. And so they're more likely, honestly, probably to give it to you straight because, they might want to discourage you from coming on board because you are going to be taking some of their work potentially. So that's definitely a possibility. I do remember I was working for a company, and I remember people did the exact same thing. They would talk to me about So I was told, that I can take vacation whenever I want. And I'm like, that is absolutely not true. And whoever told you that is lying to you. And this is how it's really going to be, Joe. Like Joe, you're going to have to work when you don't really want to sometimes, and you're going to have to work late hours, and there's going to be an unpredictable schedule. Did he explain that to you? Because the person I was talking to had no previous, investigator experience, and he was coming on board with these wrong ideas of what was going to happen. And he didn't come on board because once you realize that the truth about the job, because I didn't care. He wasn't going to take any of my work. I just want him to come in knowing what was really going to happen. He found that wasn't a good job for him. So you might find that that's not a good fit for you, depending on whatever they say, if you talk to the investigator that's there. Okay, so the next question, and let's see here. It says, do you allow ride-alongs with any investigators? So if they allow you to do this and you're offered a position, I would take the opportunity to do a ride along. It's something I did with my very first company that I ever worked for. It was the best thing I ever did. I'm really glad that the company did that because it gave me an entire day to pick the brain of that investigator. Now, I was brand new to the industry, so I was asking different questions, about the job, and I got to find out, and I got to find out a lot of these questions that I'm already covering with you, like, about the company, what's it really like, what is the expectations, and things like that. And so, that would be a great opportunity for you to do that, whether maybe your objective is to kind of pick their brain about the job or the company, or maybe just about being an investigator, whatever the case may be. Ride-alongs are a great opportunity, especially if you get somebody really good. That's not like, I don't know, who's really responsive to that kind of stuff. Okay. Anyways, let's see the next one here. We're just going along here. Your question could be, what do other investigators struggle with most at this company? So now you're kind of getting the company to kind of reveal, they can't blow over any of these. They may be able to come up with other answers that are just kind of like generic, this and that, nothing that's really shows anything bad about their company, but this question might force them to kind of be a little more real about their company, about whatever the problems are in the company or things like that. It's an open-ended question, and you might get an unexpected answer out of that. So, anyways, you just never know what'll come from that question. Another very, very, very important question is, how much work could I expect for me in the area that I work? How many hours per week, would I be looking forward to? So with that being said, please understand when you ask that question, there are potential hours and then there's going to be actual hours. So here's an example. Like, they could assign you for 5 days of work, but maybe things fall apart. And, maybe those are 3 different cases. Maybe you only work, 2.5 days because things just didn't go right. Are they going to have work to, replenish that? Say, oh, those fell apart. Don't worry, Andrew, we got another case for you. We're going to, we got something else for you, even though that wasn't the game plan originally. So is that the kind of the work that they have? Are they actively busy like that? Okay. So the next question you could ask your interviewer is, what type of work is going to be assigned to me? You're going to want to know, especially in the insurance investigation industry, there's so many different types of files, and I didn't enjoy them all. I mean, some of them I enjoyed for different reasons, but some of them were not financially beneficial. And they all kind of have their, we'll probably have to talk about that at a different time, but every assignment has its good point and its bad point. So here's an example. So if you're getting hired to do kind of like claims work, SIU work, you're looking at, interviews, photos, maybe pulling records from, courts and wherever else, and taking measurements on things and photographing that. That's what you could expect with that. Some investigators would just work surveillance, and they're just only work surveillance. Some people only work SIU assignments, and some can work both. So you want to find out what's going to be primarily assigned to you. So because some people come into a company and they like, especially like an insurance investigation company, they're like, I can do everything. And so they get everything. Not like all the work, but they get a mixture of, kind of claims work, interviewing witnesses and claimants and insureds and things like that. And then they get some surveillance assignments. And that, when you muddle those two together, sorry about that, it can get kind of messy and hard to complete those assignments. It's kind of chaotic. And so some companies prefer to just have surveillance investigators, and some companies, and separate them and have just claims investigators or field investigators that don't do the surveillance work. Okay, so let's see here. How much? Again, and I've wrote about this topic all by itself before. So how much will there be travel? Would be the next question, and then how much travel will there be? And this is all kind of in the same question lineup here. So will travel be required? How much travel? How is the hotel paid for? How much per diem is paid each day when I'm out of town? And so all of these are important questions when you're going to be away from home. You want some clear, especially, for me, I have kids and I have a wife, and I need to know, like, do you plan on trying to send me like 5-6 hours away or away from home? That's important because we have a family dynamic that I have to worry about. And how is so-and-so getting to school, and who's taking them to this? Like, that's a whole thing. And you need to kind of be aware, and everybody in the family needs to be on the same game plan. So is it going to be there? How much is it? In regards to the hotel, some companies say, if we send you away, you got to buy the hotel, and then we'll just reimburse you. And I don't like that personally. I used to do it that way. But I really trusted the company I worked for, so it was never an issue. Also, how much per diem do you get each day? How much food money do you get each day when you're away from home? That's also important to know, because it's funny. I was just talking to my wife about this, and the company that she works for, they offer over I don't know, it was like $70 a day for it was something crazy. I'm like, what? Like, you're coming, and I even know my dad, the company that he worked for, his was like over $100 a day. Well, let me just tell you that if you work for a large investigation company, especially insurance investigation companies, they have got to be the cheapest people on earth when it comes to per diem when they send you away on a case, and some of them range from $15 basically to $20 a day, which is tough to have any sort of a decent meal, at least more than one decent meal, right? So anyways, it all varies on how long you're gone and stuff like that, but that's just something to kind of think about. Okay, so and we've kind of touched on this briefly. Well, we're really flying through these, aren't we? So and a very important question to ask, because this can be the sneaky question that they don't always clarify for you, and I've learned it the hard way. So, what will your hourly rate be? That is the question. So, your hourly rate, usually. It's going to vary. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be one specific thing, but generally speaking, in at least in the insurance investigation industry, it's your hourly rate as a surveillance investigator. And you've probably heard me say this before, starts when you get to your assignment, and it ends when the assignment's over that day. So that would be your hourly rate. And so there are companies that kind of do some weird payroll things where I probably can't even explain it right now, but just be aware that, say, you want to really clarify, like, say, there's nothing that's going to interfere with my hourly rate. So there's not performance, not bonuses, not, I mean, like, well, bonuses would be a good thing, but nothing is going to take away from your hourly rate. You need to clarify that, even get it in writing, because you don't want them being like, well, we have these certain things that we do. Like, no, you don't want to be stuck in a company that's screwing you like that. You don't. Trust me. So the next question would be, is there any mileage? How would I be paid mileage, and what's the rate for mileage paid? Now, companies do it differently. Some companies, they offer gas cards. They don't want to pay you mileage, to drive, for the day, or even during a case. They don't want to pay you that kind of money. They would much rather write it off, by giving you a gas card. But there are there are many companies that do, pay you at mileage. So you want to clarify what that is, as maybe their mileage rate is different during driving to a surveillance. If they do pay for that, then it would be like a field assignment, like SIU, like we're doing interviews, driving to people's homes and businesses and measurements and all that kind of stuff. It could be paid differently. So really clarify, have a clear understanding of what's being paid. Because sometimes they'll be like, they'll just throw numbers at you, and it won't apply to everything. It might just apply to one thing. So be specific. You're kind of, you're entering, if they hire you, you're entering into agreement that you're going to have to kind of live with for a while, as long as you're with them. So, okay. The next one is on the same lines is how is travel time paid? What am I not paid for? Are you paid, and we just talked about this, kind of blends in, are you paid travel in regards to your mileage? Is that how you're paid, or is it an hourly rate? Some people, when they're like traveling away or traveling to an assignment and it's a certain distance away, they'll pay the minimum wage to drive there. And then of course, minimum wage to drive back, and they'll say, I'm sorry, but we don't pay for the first hour of travel. And so it's a way for them to protect, and still make money. I don't agree with a lot of it, but that's just kind of how the industry is. And that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into. I promise I'll share that with you and share my thoughts on the investigation industry in regards to some of this stuff. So you just want to clarify. Everything's a clarification. You want to get it in writing, have a clear understanding of the agreement. Another one, all about what you're being paid for when it comes to report time. What am I being paid for? At what rate are you being paid for your reports? If you're a surveillance guy, does processing video and sending that to your employer, does that count as report time? And if it is paid, what is a typical amount of time that is billed by an investigator for report time? Because some companies will say, we're not going to pay you any more than 1 hour for report time. And you could have done this like, you like videotape some guy for like 4 hours and it's, and then you've got to go through the video and make sure you're, articulating all the movements right. And what time did this happen? What time did this happen? And so when it's stuff like that, you need to really clarify so you're not getting sued. Some people don't even get paid. Like some companies are like, we don't pay for report time. Do it in the car. And that's their kind of philosophy on it, which I don't really agree with, because when you're doing that kind of stuff in the car during a surveillance, you have to look down, you have to type, you have to look at the video that it's reflecting what you're typing, and that affects the surveillance you're on currently. So that is my thoughts on that. And of course I've got an article here. You can read through each of these questions. So the next question you want to ask the person who's interviewing you, because now you're interviewing them, is how long have you worked for the company and what do you like about the company? So that kind of gives you an idea of, all these questions kind of mean something. At least it always means something to me. So if somebody's been working there for like 6 weeks, they really don't have a grasp of the company. And the person who's interviewed doesn't have a grasp of it and doesn't, kind of know how it runs and the type of people and all that kind of stuff. So, but if they've worked there for like 15 years, maybe they're like, hey, this is a great company. That's why I'm here. And maybe they give you a few reasons why, they like the company. So that is important. Let's see here. The next one is, what's the best thing about this company and what is the worst thing about this company? Again, you're really trying to dig in and find out, the truth the truth behind the company. I've talked to managers and I've said, and these are people that I know, and I'm like, going to work for the company that they're at, but I've known them. And I'm like, so, Joe, like, is this a good company to work for, man? And they'd be like, yeah, I have no complaints, man. I've been here, 7 years and I started this way and blah, blah, blah. And then I do some work for the company. I'm like, this company does not have its crap together. Like, this is just a horrible experience. Like, and I know, I've worked for different companies. I know what the experience should be, and I know what it shouldn't be. And so you just do your best. You really want to try to figure out. That's really the core of this. You want to completely understand what you're getting yourself into. Should they decide to bring you on board? Next question that you want to ask, and this is going to be important for a lot of you guys. Do you receive vacation time? Like that's, and if you do, are there any restrictions when you can take your vacation time? Some companies, they have, there's all different types of things they do. Like, okay, you get vacation after the first year, or it's 2 weeks. Some are very generous on vacation. Some are really tight with it. Like you get 5 days a year. And that to me is not an incentive to come and spend my career at a company. Like, you don't want me very long if you're only going to give me 5 days a year. Like, what? Like, I'm only going to spend like a 1 week vacation with my family a year? I don't think so. No, not going to happen. So that's my perspective on that. But, we're all in different places. Somebody brand new to the industry be like, yeah, I got nothing else going on. Whatever. Give me 5 days. I'm going to learn this industry and start my own business, and I'll take vacation whenever I want. And that's a great attitude too. I would love to see that. So, anyways, this whole thing is just me stressing to you how important in this whole interview process, when it's your turn to talk to them, is to find out as much as you can about the company. And a lot of these questions are gonna be important to you. You may not realize it now, but when you're working for a company and things are like not what you thought, you'll be hopefully you'll know what you thought because you've asked these questions. But I don't want you to be in that position where you're like, I didn't know that. Like, nobody said that. It wasn't in a contract. I didn't see that verbally. Like, the HR didn't tell me about that. Like that, and that's and you just be disgruntled and just so mad about it. And if you know this kind of stuff going into a company, then you know what to expect. And these types of things won't be like won't be upsetting to you when you find them out. Like if something isn't that great about the company. So before we close, first of all, if you've made it through this whole entire thing, which I hope you had, because the whole entire content has been like totally awesome. I loved writing this article. Let's do this real quick. Let me do a quick ad for you guys, and then I have a question for you, and then we'll wrap this up. So, the second one that helps me keep this podcast going, keeps me writing articles for you guys and sharing information is Audible. And Audible has allowed me to advertise their business on here. And what they do is they provide you, you sign up for their service. It's a free 30-day trial. And you get the opportunity to pick one free book out of their huge library. And when you do that, someone reads you the book. I do it for like drives to my cases, or when I'm just on long drives. I get to have someone read to me and learn. Like I probably mentioned this last podcast. My wife wants me to read a book, and I'm not like feeling like opening the book and reading. Like I can't picture myself doing that with this particular topic. So I'd much rather have someone read it to me through Audible. And so anyways, it's an audiobook, and you get the free book. And, if you don't like it, you just cancel. You get to keep the free book. It's pretty awesome to be able to do that. And anyways, if you do decide to pick up, try this free trial, I will receive a small commission at no extra cost to you, obviously, because it's free. So anyways, I thank you guys for checking that out. Every one of you guys that do that, I totally appreciate it. So I was going to say something before we ended here. Oh, okay. That's what I want to ask you. So if you've been in the industry, or even if you haven't been, and you think there's a question that should have been asked in this podcast. Now, I can't add to this podcast. This podcast has been posted as of when you're watching this and hearing this, but I can add to the article. So if you think of something important that I might have missed, that you might find that other investigators might want to ask, definitely, if you could, comment in the article itself or shoot me a message. and I'll consider the question and add it to the existing article for others to read and help them out. So that's it to get today, guys. I thank you so much for tuning in. There's a lot of great topics that I wrote about, at least in my opinion. I thought they were great topics I wrote about, and they're going to be coming up in podcasts, and I'm kind of excited about that. We're kind of like catching up to where I am currently writing. So there's a lot of good stuff ahead. Thank you for being a subscriber of the podcast. If you know somebody would be interested in this podcast, definitely let them know about it. And if you could, we're at the end of this thing here. If you could go to iTunes, if that's how you listen to this, if you could give me a review for the podcast, it'd be super great. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page and the Facebook page so we can stay in contact. And we can talk to each other, and you can see what's coming out and what's new. All right, guys. A lot of great things on the horizon. A lot of big plans in my head. I probably talked about this for 6 years. Like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. But I've got a nice little rhythm going here, and I hope I don't ever have to stop it because I'm just loving it too much. So thank you, guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.